Good day, children. Welcome to yet another session of social studies. We shall be going through we shall be conducting session 16 and going through activities for lesson 15. Let's start on the game. Like we said, this is okay. We are going to go through activity 15, getting the solutions, then we get to lesson 16. So let's start on the activity 15 solutions. 1. How did Alexander Mackay's printing press promote the spread of Christianity in Uganda? The issue we're dealing with here is the printing press here, the printing press of Mackay. How did it promote or how did it help in the spread of Christianity? 1. The printing press helped to print materials used in spreading Christianity, or the printing press was used in printing gospel books, or it was used in printing hymn books. Let's get to the next question. That's number 2. Name the bishop who was killed at Luba's palace in Busoga. This is very simple. You just name that person and you go away. What's that? Bishop Hannington, same as Bishop James Hannington. Number 3. Why did Christian missionaries in Africa need interpreters? Why were interpreters needed by Christian missionaries? Simple aspect, answer. The solution here is for communication, same as to make communication easy. Next question. State one way Dr. Albert Cook promoted the health sector of Uganda or in Uganda. There are two issues here. 1, he helped to control the spread of sleeping sickness. He also treated patients of sleeping sickness. Also, we can say he helped to construct or build Mengo Hospital. So there are two things here. One aspect about sleeping sickness that can be formed in many ways. Then the hospital Mengo. Number 5, mention any 2 problems that missionaries faced in Africa. There are quite many problems that we listed in our notes. So pick any 2. Like we said last time, choose those solutions that you can ably write. Those solutions that do not take much of your time. Those solutions whose spellings you are well conversant with. So pick any 2, such as language difficulties, such as transport problems, and others. Number 6, why was the spread of Christianity easier in Uganda than in Karamoja? Children, when we see that aspect easier is in the second degree of comparison. So we are supposed to use comparative degree. In our answer, to check if your answer is right, the aspect of Uganda should be seen with Karamoja compared. So why was the spread of Christianity easier in Uganda than in Karamoja? We can consider many issues, such as 1, Uganda had good leadership compared to Karamoja, same as Uganda had centralized administration unlike Karamoja. The people of Uganda were more welcoming than those of Karamoja, same as the people of Uganda were more hospitable than those of Karamoja. The people of Uganda were friendlier than those of Karamoja, same as the people of Karamoja were more cruel than those of Uganda. So children, that marks the end of our solutions activities. Let me hope you have had a self-check and a personal check. Where you erred somewhere, correct yourself and we proceed. So I'm inviting you, we get to lesson 16. Lesson 16. Contributions of missionaries. You want to see the contributions of missionaries. How do they contribute to our community? We are going to do this in some form. Let's see. We want to look at their economic contributions. Also, we shall look at their political contributions as well as the social contributions. These things are interrelated, that the economic contributions, if connect to political contributions, also if you can connect political contribution to social contributions, and finally we link up social aspects to economic, we shall talk about this in form of change. Therefore, we shall be discussing economic changes brought by missionaries, also political changes brought by missionaries, and also social changes brought by missionaries. So as we reason, as we talk, as you listen, as you interpret, internalize issues based on that the coming of missionaries ushered in change, which changes took 3 dimensions: the economic dimension, the political dimension, and the social dimension. So let's carry on to begin with one of them. Economic contributions. They introduced new crops. This aspect there is introducing missionaries who are dealing with missionaries. So missionaries introduced new crops. They introduced quite many crops, but here I want to show you one picture. What could that be, children? I hope you comprehend that. That is cotton. So we are right to say they introduced cotton. They built roads. We are calling roads an economic aspect. Reason: roads are used in transporting goods, services. They taught practical skills. So that's the economic, because when you conduct a skill, when you do something for another person that is skillful, you ought to be paid. So we are calling skills to be economic. They introduced legitimate trade. Let's look at this cotton. Last time I faced a challenge when talking to people about cotton. Many children were saying they have never seen cotton. How does cotton grow? How is it harvested? So the next picture is going to introduce us to the garden of cotton. See how those people are harvesting cotton. I hope you can see the other person, Mose, first picks with the hands, then places the cotton, when it's enough, into the basin. So cotton is harvested by picking, same as hand picking. So that's the mode of harvesting cotton. That's a cotton plantation or a cotton garden. So that's how the garden looks like. Let's carry on. Social contributions. We are dealing with the social contributions of missionaries. 1. They introduced Western medicine. By saying Western medicine, we mean medicine that is made from industries, from factories. Built hospitals like Mengo, Lubaga, and others. Missionaries built schools like King's College Budo, Gayaza High School, and others. They introduced formal education. That's the same as they taught the 3 R's. I hope you recall the 3 R's in our lesson last time. We said the 3 R's stands for reading, writing, and arithmetic. So do not forget that the 3 R simply means reading, writing, and arithmetics. So let's get to some other aspect. They linked Africa to outside world. They linked Africa to the outside world. So our Africa was linked to the outside world peacefully, honorably, in a good way through the missionaries. They introduced new dress code. When you see somebody tucking in, somebody having a necktie, that code or that dress code was introduced by the missionaries or the Christian missionaries. So we say, yes, thank you for coming, missionaries. Whenever I see somebody tucking in and putting on a necktie, it was introduced by those people. New games and sports were introduced by missionaries. Football, netball, name all those, volleyball, Basketball, they were all introduced by Christian missionaries as they introduced schools in here. Let's also look at another issue, that is political effects or political contributions. These are quite few. Reason: religious people were interested in religion, though these things work in play. So they led to the coming of colonialists, who are saying that's one of their political contribution. Since colonists were administrators or politicians, we say their coming was aided by missionaries, and we attribute that to the missionaries. Then also, missionaries represented African interests in many forums. Let's look at this question. How did Christian missionaries lead to development of the following sectors? Sector 1, education. Sector 2, health. If you are comfortable with such a question, how did the Christian missionaries lead to development of education? What would you say? 1, they built schools. 2, you could as well say they introduced formal education, and you could as well say they introduced teaching of the 3 R's. So you cannot also get it right if you choose any one of the 3 R's. Like they taught people reading, they taught people arithmetics. All that is under education. Question next is, how did Christian missionaries lead to development of the health sector? They built schools, they built hospitals. Also, they introduced Western medicine. Let's say other sectors were having agriculture as part, are supposed to have part C, then part D, games. So if part C is to be agriculture, how did they promote agriculture? We say they introduced new crops, also new farming systems and farming methods. How they promote games? They introduced new games in our community. So let's see some other thing. All those have been good things. Did they only do good to us? Did the missionaries only do good to us? Certainly no. Their coming was at times a problem or a challenge. It caused some problems, some hindrances, some challenges. Let's get that aspect. So negative effects of Christian missionaries. Why do we say they were negative? 1, they were spies for Africa's raw materials. They reported what Africa has. They reported Africa's treasures. So other people who came on board, like the European traders, like the colonialists, were responding to the spies, to the words of the spies, who were missionaries in this case. They led to death of Africans. Africans died due to missionary work in many ways. In inter-religious wars, Africans died. So we're saying they led to death of Africans. Do not also forget that some of our children who were converts to Christianity were killed in the name of Christian martyrs. So we are right to say they led to death of Africans. Led to religious wars in Uganda. I hope you know that there are many effects of war. War can lead to death, like we said earlier on. War can lead to loss of dear ones. War can lead to famine. War can lead to displacement and many other things. So we're saying all the odds, all the evils of war that were in our country, in our region, due to religious wars, are counted on those people. So they led to religious wars. They divided Africans on religious basis. Unity is at all times good. So if this aspect of religion brought disunity, we are right to condemn it and to say, no, Christian missionaries, you brought a wrong thing to us because it brought disunity. They led to the decline in African craft industry. Whatever was made in Africa was so much criticized by the whites or by the missionaries. They were critics of all our things. So it underdeveloped African craftsmanship, leading to low development in African industry. They preached against ATR, or African traditional religion, calling it demonic, calling it all sorts of bad names. How I wish they left us to develop our own religion. Maybe it would have been far better than theirs, but they were criticizing ours. Yet ours perhaps was just on the verge of growing. If they would leave us, maybe we would have developed further than that. They preached against African culture. Now, children, this issue of culture takes us all through the things. Actually, this issue of culture combines all the other things. So, in case you're asked to write any two negative effects of Christian missionaries, be careful as you're fronting culture, because it can bury, it can embed all the other factors. Let's also get to some question that will guide us on a relationship between chiefs, kings in relation to missionaries. Why African chiefs and kings disliked missionaries? Why do you think African kings and chiefs disliked missionaries? Quite many reasons, but first thing, African chiefs and kings disliking missionaries. What was the cause? Perhaps you've thought in this way. One, missionaries preached against African culture. So since these chiefs and kings were the custodians of African culture, were the leaders of African culture, were the chiefs, the champions of African culture, and here comes the missionaries who were saying, no, this is rubbish. There is no way that those people would rhyme. They end up being parallel. So we are right to say missionaries preached against African culture, and that was a bond of contention between the African kings, chiefs, and missionaries. Two, missionaries were against slave trade, or missionaries were anti-slave trade. So, since African kings and chiefs were profiting, were benefiting, were earning from slave trade, and here missionaries were condemning slave trade, there is no way these two groups would be at the same footing. They would end up as enemies, and indeed they end as enemies. Missionaries never gave them guns. Missionaries never gave them guns. This aspect of them were referring to the kings and chiefs. Remember in the last talk, we said what brought a bond of contention between Kabaka Mwanga and the missionaries, actually Kabaka Mutesa I and the missionaries, was he had expected guns from them. But in return, they came with the Bibles. There is no way they could be at the same footing. Last aspect here is missionaries preached against African traditional religion. Therefore, these people could not be friends in any way. We want to go through some two questions here. Question one, I'll bring it first. Why did Christianity spread faster than ATR? You recall that ATR is a native religion. It was here. Christianity found it here. But Christianity ended up developing or growing faster, ended up having many converts, ended up being trusted, being believed more than ATR. What could be the reasons behind that? One, Christian missionaries had better preaching methods than ATR. I want to remind you that this equally is a form of we are seeing two things there. We are seeing Christianity and ATR. So it's another aspect of comparing. So the first answer there, Christian missionaries had better preaching methods than ATR. The aspect of than there, look at it properly. Number two, Christianity had written records unlike ATR. This unlike and than are helping us to introduce a controversy. Then Christianity had committed preachers than ATR. In this question next, that you must have guessed to see, I've cheated for you, but it's bad to cheat. In the next question, I want to start with solutions. One of the answers is by signing treaties of friendship with chiefs and kings. In this question, the other answer is by use of guards. Do you think you know the question? Maybe yes, maybe no. Let me get on the next answer, maybe to guide you to get a question. By constructing their buildings on hills. Remember, we are dealing with Christian missionaries. So by constructing their buildings on hills, can that give you a guess on the question? Perhaps yes. How many have written the question? How many have the question somewhere in their mind? Let's see number one. This number one is a drawing. It's going to guide us on another answer. So, by use of guns. By use of guns. What question have you come up with? Does your question satisfy or suit those answers? If you read through your question and we say we answer by use of guards, does it qualify? Maybe you're right. See the question I've set. Write any two ways missionaries protect themselves. So we can say by use of guns, by constructing their buildings on hills, by use of guards, by signing treaties of friendship with chiefs and kings. And within this issue of chiefs and kings, we can as well accept some other thing. That is by staying in kings' palaces. We can also accept by giving gifts to kings and chiefs. Children, we want to go to yet our last aspect, and that is our way forward. Now that we have understood and comprehended quite many things about missionaries, what's our way forward? Let's trace where we came from. We dealt with explorers, I hope you recall. You can even open your notes and you see. We have also dealt with missionaries. What are we left with? What are we starting on the next lesson? What do we have for lesson 17? Lesson 17 shall have traders, where we shall be addressing trading companies or European trading companies. And after that one, we shall be remaining with the two things, that is colonialists, same as administrators, and shall end the lesson, the topic, by having settlers. Thank you very much. You have been such a good group. We meet next time. That's lesson 17 or 18. Bye.